on pausing. Written by me, Eric Wadell. First draft, August 2025. Chapter 7, ACUTE Situation. Personal story. One night in February 2001, I was suddenly woken up. Together with my family, I went for one of the windows and looked far in the direction of the inner city. Flames, huge flames, and smoke filling up the sky. The flames were deep orange and red. The smoke was thick gray and brown, and the sky far up above was pitch black. Silent, we just stood there, watching for a while. And then my parents broke the silence and said that the fire was located precisely where our family business was also located. Could be that it was all gone, but maybe not. We could not know for sure. All we could do was pause and see two possible futures within us. In the one future, the family business would be burnt down, which would mean that we had an immense workload to expect for quite some foreseeable time. In the other future, the family business would still be there, and we would continue our everyday life as usual. It took until the morning after that we learned that the business had made it through all right. The fire had been stopped a couple 100 meters away from its location. So the second future came true, and our lives would continue on as usual. But was that really the case? Materially, the family business was spared from the devastation of the flames, but still, the pause that my family had shared with all the people of Jönköping that February night was significant. Such a sudden and disruptive situation has the potential to change our outlook on the way of things. Such a situation shakes us to the core, and we get to know ourselves in a new way. Our family business was spared, but others were not. The situation. Acute is when something sudden happens, which catches us off guard. We are startled or suddenly approached. In the last chapter, we looked at our sleep situation, which can be said to be our slowest developing situation. At the other hand, acute situation can be said to be our fastest developing situation. An acute situation often does not last for more than 10 seconds. It is about those times when we are going about our day and something or someone suddenly turns our day on its head, and we are left with a sense of disbelief. After an acute situation, we want it to never happen like that again. So we often go to great lengths, making extensive preparations, trying to avoid acute situations. We more or less consciously map out people and places where we suspect sudden twists and turns to be probable. Making plans, we think of things that could go wrong, all so that we may dodge acute situations. And it is understandable that we do so, because they are unpleasant and disruptive. It takes but a moment for our adrenaline to spike by something suddenly startling. And then it takes a long time, sometimes the whole day or more, for us to calm down again. But unfortunately, sometimes acute situations seem to find us nonetheless, even when we have taken careful precautions. And that is when we instead make use of pausing. Since acute situations often are short, thus our pause in an acute situation also needs to be short. We usually say that we pause for a second or two, but here we might even talk of pausing for a split second or two. We pause for a split second or two and make a micro plan or a micro goal. We pause and plan what to do for only the next few seconds. Often the micro plan or micro goal we make during our pause is simply to move our body from here to there, or to say a few words to him or her, or to lift this one thing away from that other thing. Practicing pausing in acute situations builds a certain kind of confidence in ourselves, as well as humility in what is physically possible in short amounts of time. Practicing pausing in acute situations also builds situational awareness that allows us to stand not only on the leg of preparation, but also on the leg of improvisation. Acute goal authority. In such a sudden, split-second kind of situation, what is the most important thing to keep straight? Authority. Or rather, the perceived authority of each individual entity involved in the situation. Acute situations are about conflicting claims, and more specifically, conflicting claims demanding to be resolved in a matter of few seconds. For one reason or another, there you are with one set of expectations as to your certain claims in the present situation. And there, another individual is with another set of expectations. And your different expectations match so bad that something sudden and potentially dangerous happens. At every given moment, we all have certain expectations as to claims to space, as well as claims to things. We might say, I stand here because this is my space. And we might also say, I hold my hand on this thing because it is mine. When one space has more than one claimant, or one thing has more than one claimant, an acute situation is often the result. That is when we pause for a split second or two and make a micro plan or micro goal as to what are the perceived authorities in this situation. We pause and look at ourselves and the other parties with instinctual eyes, with pit of our stomach kind of eyes, and make an honest judgment call as to what is our own sense of authority and what are the senses of authority of the others. Pausing in an acute situation and looking for our goal authority is in a sense to connect with our animal roots. It is about looking each other in the eye and just knowing what to do for the next few seconds. So acute goal authority is not so much about building up our own authority to ever greater heights, but rather to develop a solid improvisational sense of how to judge the perceived authorities of the parties involved, and to be able to do it in but a split second pause. This takes practice and more practice. We are bad at it in the beginning, and slowly but surely grows more adept. It is also a profound thing to connect with our more animal roots in communication. It can feel overwhelming if we start out disconnected from it. So, humility above all. We are here dealing with fast developing situations, but also with slow developing skills for them. Next, we will look at 3 specific skills for growing more adept to acute situations. Weight and balance, diaphragm, and tension. Weight and balance. Our Earth is the most natural authority there is. We are all held in place by its gravity. We all count on it to always carry our weight. However, most of us fight against the gravitational pull on our bodies. Often we fight against our own natural sense of weight. We do not allow for our feet to be as solidly planted on the earth as we could. We make ourselves lighter than necessary. And with it, we make ourselves more easily shaken and pushed over than necessary. Furthermore, most of us either lean too much forward in our social interactions or too much backwards. We are not as balanced as we could be. We think we either have to do too much, or we think that we should not have to do anything at all. It is for this reason that specific skill, weight and balance becomes useful. We pause and observe our senses of weight and balance. Are we fighting against the gravitational pull of the earth more than necessary? And are we leaning too much forwards or backwards? We all have a given weight and a given balance to make use of in life. And we run into trouble when we try to make ourselves either smaller or bigger than we actually are. Specific skill, weight and balance is about getting a real sense of our actual physical presence. That way, when we are faced with an acute situation, we will know our real size. We will improvise sounder decisions when we have a more realistic self-image, rather than when we nurture false pretensions about who we think we should be. Many acute situations develop in a bad way because the participants either inflate or deflate themselves more than necessary. With specific skill, weight and balance, we will be in contact with our personal size, and our feet will be in contact with the earth. That way, when another person sees us, they also see the natural authority of the earth. And so, they are reminded of that reassuring quality. This tends to calm down a lot of situations, even before they develop badly into unnecessary acute ones. Diaphragm. Sometimes, even when we have a sound self-image of our real size and our feet are planted firmly on the ground, we come across a situation where the shared energy is simply too nervous anyway. Sometimes a situation is just too acute beyond our helping, unfortunately. How do we know when that is the case? We know when our diaphragm tells us so. Specific skill diaphragm is about learning to read the signals from the set of muscles in our body known as our diaphragm. Our diaphragm is located just beneath our rib cage, and it is responsible for controlling our breathing. You can now pause and look down on your abdomen to see how your diaphragm is automatically breathing in and out for you. Our diaphragm is intimately in tune with subtle unconscious communication cues. At every given moment, we communicate with each other on subtle levels that we seldom or never think about. Our diaphragm is the best judge of danger that we have. It is in tune with things we have forgotten. It cuts straight through both all of our own pretensions as well as the pretensions of others. Our diaphragm just knows when a situation is not constructive. So specific skill diaphragm is about learning to listen for what it is trying to tell us. When we feel that our diaphragm starts vibrating or feels nervous, we pause for a second or two. Then we look up and honestly identify if we are in fact in a situation beyond our current skill level. It could be that a certain person is scaring us, or that we are faced with a long-time desire or sadness of ours. Either way, our diaphragm is telling us that we might need to regroup and contemplate what it really was that we encountered. When making use of specific skill diaphragm, we tap into an intuition deeper than our conscious thinking, and with it we will know when an acute situation is simply too acute for the moment. Could be that we can come back to a similar situation and try again and try better after we have had some time reflecting upon it. But going against the better knowing of our diaphragm is seldom advisable. Tension. If there would be no tension, acute situations would not be able to occur. We could even say that acute situations are made of tensions suddenly releasing. At this very moment, you are tense. There are a multitude of tensions throughout your body. And tension is not all bad. We need tension. Without tension, nothing would ever happen. The tension in our bodies is like the tension in the string of a musical instrument, like on a cello. In order for the cello string to sound good, it needs to be tuned in just the right tension. Not too tense, but not too loose either. Our bodies are the same. In order for us to be able to make skillful use of them, we need to be tense, but not too tense, nor too loose. Specific skill tension is about making good use of the tension in our bodies. Whenever an acute situation is occurring, it is often due to some parties being too tense or too loose. We are sensitive to when tensions are not matching up, with sudden outbursts often resulting between us. Specific skill tension is rather musical in its practice. It is about getting a tangible feel to the tension in our own body, as well as a tangible feel to the tension in the bodies of others. It is about focusing on where the tension in ourselves and the tension in others match up and communicate in an interesting way. At some moments we are too relaxed, and then we will want to alert ourselves somewhat. At other moments we are too tense, and then we will want to relax instead. However, we need to be realistic as to how much we can alert or relax ourselves in any given moment. Tension is not easily manipulated in a split-second kind of situation. When the mismatch in tension is too great between ourselves and another individual, it will be beyond helping in a short amount of time. We pause and get a feel to the tension in our own body and the body of the other. If it feels constructive in the pit of our stomach, we may engage. If it does not, we move away. Now we have covered some of the ideas for pausing in acute situations. Next up is pausing for our long-term situation.